Hi folks, it's Evo here from Thundermist Lure Company. Welcome to today's episode of Thundermist Fishing Tips. Today folks, what I'd like to do is just share some different tips, some simple things that you could do with everyday fishing that'll help you maybe maximize your time on the water. Let's start with first thing, with fishing line. When you've got your line, right now take a look at your fishing reel and see how full the spool is of line. That spool should be up within about a 1/16 of an inch. There should only be a 1/16 of an inch of that spool showing. If you have a spool that's only half filled with line, the problem with that is you're going to get less casting distance. So to maximize your casting distance, you want to make sure that your spool of line is full right to the top within a 1/16 of an inch. That will maximize your casting distance. The other thing it will do, obviously, if you only have a half a spool of line and you catch a big fish, you run the risk of getting spooled. So the bottom line is a full spool of line is good for many reasons. The next thing is the kind of line that you use. If you're using a spinning reel and you decide to go with 20-pound test line, that's not a very good idea because spinning reels aren't really made for that thicker line. So if you have 15, 20-pound test line, fluoro or mono on your spool compared to, let's say, 10-pound fluoro or mono, the 10-pound is going to cast way farther than the 20-pound, for example. So to maximize, again, your casting distance, the thickness of the line makes a difference. That's why braid casts so far because it's so thin. 20-pound braid is, as equivalent as 10-pound fluoro. So you can really get a lot of casting distance. So the thickness of your line makes a huge difference as well. The next thing when it comes to casting distance is the length of your rod. The longer the rod, the longer the ability to cast further. So for the boatless angler, that's very important when you're fishing from shore to get those long casts and cover a lot of water. So again, the longer the rod, the longer the cast. The next thing you have complete control over is the retrieval. Once you cast, if you start reeling in, let's say, a lure, if you start reeling in a lure with your rod tip up here, the lure hits the water, you're automatically forcing that lure to come up. And you don't want to do that. Once you've cast your line, you want to keep your rod tip down. The only time you want to bring your rod up like this is when you're closer to shore and you want that lure now to start coming up. However, when you first cast, I'll show you what I mean, the position of your rod tip is key with any lure that you're casting. So when you begin the retrieve, you want that rod tip to be pointing right down close to the surface of the water. That way you're going to keep that lure and force that lure to stay down into the strike zone. Then as you get closer to shore or closer to the boat, if you want, then you can lift your rod tip up. Now you're going to start forcing that lure to come up. But the key there is you want to keep that rod tip down as long as you can and keep your lure in the strike zone as long as you can. The other thing that you have complete control over, and it's another simple thing, and that's the retrieve. So once you cast out your lure, you have a choice now. Not only do you have a choice with rod position, but speed of retrieval. You can retrieve very slowly, you can retrieve very fast, or you can retrieve erratically and twitch the bait back. So the slow retrieve you're going to want to do on those days when you've got a cold front condition, the fish are a little lethargic, you've got murky water conditions. A nice slow retrieve will allow the fish to hone in on your lure and trigger a bite. The fast retrieve you want to do when you're looking for those aggressive fish. You're searching a lot of water, you want to search relatively quickly, find an aggressive fish, then you can slow down and work the area. The twitching method, basically what you're doing there, when you're twitching your lure back, is you're looking for that reaction bite. So in those cases, the fish might not necessarily be on the bite, but when they see your lure coming erratically in, their natural instinct clicks in and it triggers a bite. So that's when you want to kind of twitch your lure back. So those few things, folks, those are a few very simple things that we can do as anglers to help make a difference on the water. The only other thing I would like to mention is, I did talk about braid earlier, and for those of you who've seen our episodes, you know that I always say with braided line, always use a fluorocarbon leader or a mono leader. Braid, fish can see braid. So if you tie direct from braid to your lure, and you say, yeah, I caught a fish, you might have caught one, but you probably didn't get 10 others that didn't bite because they saw your line. So very important, tie a fluorocarbon or a mono leader onto your braided line, and you'll definitely increase your success rate for catching fish. And don't be afraid to use a longer leader line. And the only one other thing I'd like to mention when it comes to leader line, or if you're running straight mono or straight fluoro, regardless, after a day on the water or two, when you get back home, before you get out on the water again, take about a foot of line or 2 feet of line and snip it off and retie your lure on. Because what happens is that last 1 or 2 feet of line that you've used the day before or earlier gets weaker with time. You've used it, that knot has been used, that line's been worked, it's been in the water the most. Snip off about 2 feet of line, retie, and you're good to go. You know what, folks? A few simple things that we could do might make a difference between having a good day and a great day. Wherever you're tuning in, thanks for tuning in and joining me on today's episode of Thundermist Fishing Tips. And as always, folks, until next time, good luck.